A millionaire faked his coma to test his nurse, but her midnight confession broke him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the story. The steady hum of machines filled the private hospital room, a sterile rhythm against the soft glow of the monitors. Grant Carter, a billionaire tech investor, lay motionless beneath the crisp white sheets, his chest rising and falling in perfect mechanical time. To the world, he was a man in a coma after a terrible car accident. But only he knew the truth. He was awake, fully conscious, and pretending. He had chosen to fake his coma after discovering that someone close to him had tried to end his life. He wanted to know who truly cared, who would stay when he had nothing but a silent heartbeat. And tonight, as the night shift began, he would finally learn. Anna Rivera pushed open the door quietly, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. She was 27, with tired eyes and a softness that made every movement careful and kind. Her hands carried a basin of warm water and a clean towel. "Good evening, Mr. Carter," she whispered as she did every night. Her voice was calm, familiar, a melody that had become his only connection to humanity. Grant's eyes stayed closed, but his heart rate ticked up by one tiny beat. She never noticed. Or maybe she did. Anna placed the towel beside him, testing the water's temperature on her wrist before she began to wipe his arms. The scent of soap and antiseptic mixed with the faint sweetness of lavender lotion. Her routine was precise but gentle, a ritual of care no one else would have bothered to maintain. She spoke softly as she worked. "Everyone keeps saying you cannot hear me," she murmured. "But I do not believe that. I think you are still in there somewhere." Her words sank into the silence like rain into dry soil. Grant felt them land one by one on the edges of his guilt. He had started this act to test loyalty, to expose greed. He had not expected to find comfort in the sound of a stranger's voice. Anna continued, unaware that every word reached him. She told him about the old stray cat that slept outside the hospital kitchen, how she fed it leftovers even though the supervisor disapproved. She told him about her mother's illness, about working double shifts to pay for medication, about how she prayed that kindness still mattered in a world that seemed to reward cruelty. Grant wanted to open his eyes, to say something, anything, but he stayed still. When she finished cleaning, she tucked the blanket up to his chest and looked at his still face. "I know you cannot answer," she said softly, "but sometimes it feels like you are listening." She smiled faintly, more to herself than to him. "Anyway, good night, Mr. Carter." She turned off the overhead light, leaving only the soft glow of the monitor illuminating the room. The door clicked shut. Grant lay there, eyes closed, the sound of her footsteps fading down the hall. His mind replayed her every word. For the first time in months, the silence around him did not feel empty. It felt heavy with guilt, with gratitude, with something dangerously close to hope. He had faked his coma to expose betrayal. But tonight, for the first time, he wondered if he was the one being exposed. Days passed, then weeks. The sterile white room became both prison and sanctuary for Anna Rivera. She had memorized every flicker of the monitor, every slow rise and fall of Grant Carter's chest. To the other nurses, he was just a name on a chart. To her, he had become something more, a quiet presence that reminded her why she had chosen this work in the first place. Each morning, she arrived early, tying her hair back beneath her cap before the sun touched the windows. She would draw the curtains halfway, letting in just enough light to soften the shadows. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she would whisper, even though she knew no one answered. "It is a new day. Let us make it count." Her supervisor often told her she was wasting energy on a hopeless case. "6 months in a coma, Anna," the woman would sigh. "He is gone, even if the machines say otherwise." But Anna never believed that. There was a pulse, a warmth, a sense that something inside him was waiting. What Anna did not know was that behind those closed eyes, Grant was listening. He had been listening since the first night. Every word she spoke became a thread tying him to the world he had almost abandoned. He had expected to hear lies, ambition, whispers of greed. Instead, he heard kindness, stories about humanity, and laughter that did not belong in a place so quiet. One late afternoon, rain lashed against the tall windows of the private ward. The city outside was gray and blurred. Anna sat beside his bed, her clipboard resting on her lap. The sound of the rain mixed with the soft beeping of the monitor, a rhythm that had started to feel like a heartbeat shared between them. "My mother used to love the rain," she said, not looking at him. "She would open every window in the house just to smell it. When she got sick, I promised I would make enough money to buy her a little place by the ocean. She wanted to see the storms roll in from the water." Grant wanted to speak, to tell her that he had once owned 3 beach houses he had never cared to visit, but he could not. He stayed still, and her voice became his only freedom. That night, after her shift ended, she returned quietly with a small speaker in her hand. She placed it on the bedside table and whispered, "You probably would not like the hospital silence either, so I brought you some music. It is an old jazz record. They say music can reach places medicine cannot." The first notes drifted through the room, warm and low. Grant's heart rate monitor spiked just slightly. Anna smiled, unaware that he could hear the faint hum of her laughter. She hummed along to the tune as she straightened his blanket. When the clock struck midnight, she looked at his face and sighed. "I do not know why I keep talking to you," she admitted softly. "Maybe it makes me feel less alone." She pulled up the chair and rested her chin on her hands. Her eyes were tired, rimmed red from lack of sleep. "You know, sometimes I think you are lucky," she whispered. "You get to escape everything. No bills, no fear, no heartbreak. You just lie there while the world keeps turning." Her voice trembled. "But then again, maybe that is not living either." This stayed. She stood, reaching out to adjust the monitor wires, unaware that a single tear had fallen from her cheek onto his hand. The monitor beeped again just once, a slightly higher tone. Anna froze, her breath catching. Her eyes darted to the screen. Everything looked normal, yet something inside her knew it was not just a machine glitch. Slowly, she placed her palm over his. "Mr. Carter, can you hear me?" she whispered. No response. The machine stayed steady, but the warmth beneath her fingers felt different, stronger, more alive. She waited a few seconds longer before shaking her head, half smiling through the exhaustion. "It is okay. I am just tired. Maybe I imagined it." As she left the room, the lights dimmed to their night setting. Outside, the rain continued to pour. Inside, Grant's eyelids fluttered for the briefest moment. His mind screamed to move, to speak, to stop her from leaving, but he stayed trapped inside his own silence. He could still feel the tears she had left on his skin. For the first time since he began this cruel test, guilt pricked through him like a needle. He had faked his coma to expose betrayal, but the only truth he had uncovered was hers honesty, kindness, and a soul that refused to give up on him. In the darkness, he realized that the test was no longer about anyone else. It was about him. And for the first time, he wanted to wake up. The next morning arrived gray and cold. The hospital lights flickered as the night staff switched shifts. Anna Rivera walked in holding her usual cup of coffee and a folder pressed against her chest. Her body ached from the double shift, but she forced a smile when she stepped into Grant Carter's room. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she said softly, setting her things down. Another day, another chance. She began her routine. Temperature check, IV inspection, notes on the clipboard. The sound of latex gloves snapped faintly as she adjusted the oxygen tube. Everything was the same except for one thing. When she looked at the monitor, the heart rate line moved with a steadier rhythm than before. Stronger, more deliberate. She leaned closer. "You are getting better," she whispered. Or maybe it is just wishful thinking. What she did not know was that he heard every word. Grant had spent the entire night trying to lift a single finger to make one sound, but his body refused to obey. His mind screamed, trapped behind a wall of muscles that no longer listened. Yet the memory of her tear, the warmth of her touch, had rooted him in something real, something he could not control. Anna hummed softly as she cleaned around his bed. "You know," she said, "I was thinking of bringing that cat from the kitchen upstairs. Maybe he will keep you company." She smiled faintly, imagining his reaction if he were awake. "Do not worry. I will make sure he behaves." Her kindness filled the room like sunlight breaking through the blinds. To Grant, it felt unbearable and beautiful all at once. He had expected to uncover selfishness or indifference, not this quiet devotion. He wanted to stop pretending. He wanted to tell her that he was sorry. When she stepped away to change the linens, her phone rang. She answered quickly, voice dropping low. Yes, Mom, I am here. No, I have not forgotten. I will transfer the payment tonight. I promise. A pause. Please do not cry. The doctor said we have a little more time. Grant's chest tightened. He knew that tone, the desperate calm of someone trying to hold a collapsing world together. Every word cut through him, each one a reminder of how small his problems seemed compared to hers. After the call, she stood silently beside him, wiping her eyes with the back of her glove. Sorry about that, Mr. Carter. I guess we both have our battles. Her voice cracked at the end, and for the first time, Grant's hand twitched. It was barely visible, a faint movement, more instinct than command, but it happened. The monitor beeped slightly faster. Anna gasped. Wait, did you? She leaned over him, her heart pounding. Mr. Carter, can you hear me? No answer. But the line on the monitor danced again, a small surge, like a heartbeat responding to her voice. Her eyes filled with tears. She pressed the call button on the wall. Doctor! He moved! I think he is waking up. The hallway erupted with noise. Footsteps, alarms, voices shouting orders. Within seconds, 2 doctors and a nurse rushed into the room. They checked his vitals, ran quick tests, and exchanged looks of disbelief. Brain activity has increased, one of them said. This is significant. Anna stood frozen, one hand still gripping the side of the bed. Her chest rose and fell quickly, tears spilling down her cheeks. As the team worked around him, Grant's world flickered between light and shadow. The noise, the voices, the rush of life, it all blurred together. But one sound cut through it all. Anna's voice, trembling but filled with hope. It is okay, Mr. Carter. You are safe. You are going to be okay. For the first time in months, his eyelids fluttered. A single tear escaped the corner of his eye. And though he could not yet speak, his mind whispered the words he had wanted to say for weeks. I hear you. When Grant Carter opened his eyes again, the room was filled with light. Everything blurred, at first the ceiling, the window, the shapes moving around him. His throat burned as he tried to breathe on his own. Machines beeped in steady rhythm, confirming what no one had dared to hope. He was awake. Anna Rivera stood by his bedside, her hands trembling around a plastic cup of water. For a long moment she could not speak. Then her voice came out in a broken whisper. Mr. Carter, can you see me? He blinked, confused, his lips dry. Where am I? Her eyes filled with tears of relief. You are in St. Jude's Hospital. You were in a coma, but you are safe now. Grant turned his head slowly toward her. The effort made him dizzy, but he could not look away. Her face was familiar in a way he could not explain, like a memory he had carried through every dark dream. Who are you? He rasped. I am Anna, she said softly. Your nurse. Silence stretched between them. Then, weakly, he nodded. You stayed? I did, she replied, smiling through tears. Every night. For a moment, neither spoke. The monitors hummed quietly in the background. Anna poured a little water into a straw and lifted it to his lips. He took a sip, his throat tightening with emotion he did not yet understand. As the days passed, the hospital became a place of quiet miracles. Grant's strength returned little by little. He learned to move his fingers, then his arms, then sit upright without help. Anna was always there, steady, patient, and unshakably kind. Breathe, she would say, holding his hand during therapy. You have survived worse. And see, I said, out of eye in dead glame, and mother eyes in a safe. Sometimes when he struggled, he would look up and catch her eyes, watching him not with pity, but with quiet faith. That gaze did something to him that no medicine could. One afternoon, he found the small speaker she had brought weeks earlier, still sitting on the bedside table. When she entered, he pointed at it weakly. You played this for me? She nodded, embarrassed. It helped me focus, and maybe it helped you too. Grant smiled faintly, the first true smile in months. It did. From that day, music filled the room again. Jazz, soft piano, the rhythm of healing. She would hum along as she adjusted his blankets, and sometimes he would close his eyes, pretending to sleep just to listen. But beneath the warmth, questions began to stir in his mind. He remembered flashes, headlights, voices shouting, the taste of fear. There was something about the accident that did not make sense. Late one evening, after Anna left, he stared at the ceiling and whispered into the dark. Someone wanted me gone. The thought chilled him. He looked toward the door where she had stood moments earlier, her voice still echoing softly in his mind. For the first time, Grant Carter felt something stronger than gratitude. He felt purpose returning, and with it, a quiet promise. Whoever tried to end his life would soon face the truth. The following week, Grant Carter began physical therapy. His legs were weak, his balance uncertain, but determination had replaced doubt. Each step felt like a quiet rebellion against the months he had spent pretending to be helpless. Anna Rivera was there every day, guiding him through the pain. "Do not rush," she would say, steadying him with both hands. "You win one step at a time." He laughed once, breathless but sincere. "You talk like you have done this before." "I have," she replied, smiling faintly. "Not with millionaires, though." That line made him pause. There was no envy in her voice, only light humor. He had spent his entire life surrounded by people who wanted something from him. She was the first person who seemed to expect nothing at all. As he grew stronger, memories returned in fragments. The night of the accident came back in flashes: the slick road, the sound of brakes, a man's voice shouting from behind. Then the crash, metal against metal, glass shattering. But most disturbing of all was the memory that followed. Someone at his bedside before the ambulance arrived, whispering into his ear, "Next time, stay out of the deal." Grant's blood turned cold. It was not an accident. It had been a warning. He tried to shake off the thought during his therapy sessions, but the words would not leave him. One afternoon, while Anna helped him practice walking along the hallway, he asked quietly, "Have there been any visitors while I was out?" She hesitated. "Only your legal team, a few board members, and your family. But honestly, I did not let anyone disturb you much. I thought you needed peace." Her answer made him realize how much power she had quietly wielded, protecting him, even from people he had trusted. He studied her face for a moment. "You kept them away?" "I just followed my instincts," she said. "Some of them did not seem to want you to wake up." Her words hit him like a physical blow. He stopped walking, gripping the railing as his breath came short. "Who?" She looked at him carefully, sensing the storm behind his eyes. "I do not know, Mr. Carter. But one of them asked about your monitors more than once. It felt wrong." He nodded slowly, anger and fear twisting together. The pieces were aligning, and they pointed to a truth darker than he had imagined. That night, after the ward fell silent, Anna checked his room one last time. He was sitting upright in bed, staring at the city lights through the window. "You should rest," she said gently. He turned toward her, his expression unreadable. "Anna, thank you for staying." She smiled softly. "It was my job." "No," he said, shaking his head. "You made it more than that." She looked away, trying to hide the warmth in her eyes. "Get some sleep, Mr. Carter." As she left, the echo of her footsteps faded into the corridor. Grant leaned back, his jaw tightening. Whoever had tried to destroy him was still out there. But now he was awake. And this time, he was not alone. A few days later, Grant Carter was moved from the intensive care unit to a private recovery suite overlooking the city skyline. The morning light spilled across the room as he sat by the window, staring down at the streets far below. For the first time, he felt like a man who had come back from the edge, and yet the edge still called to him. He could not shake the memory of that voice from the night of the crash. "Next time, stay out of the deal." Those words haunted every moment of silence. Someone close to him had wanted him gone. He needed to know who. Anna Rivera entered quietly, holding a tray of breakfast. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she said, setting it down beside him. "You look better today." "I feel better," he replied. "Stronger." Then, after a pause, "Do you know if my assistant has visited lately?" "A man named Ryan Hale." She nodded. "Yes, he came twice. I did not let him stay long. He seemed impatient." Grant's eyes darkened. Ryan Hale was more than an assistant. He had been his business partner, and the only one who knew about the new investment deal that had threatened several powerful people. "If he comes again," Grant said slowly, "let me know immediately." Anna studied his face, sensing something deeper behind his calm tone. "You think he had something to do with your accident?" "I think too many people had something to gain from my silence," he answered. "And I played dead long enough to see who would show their true face." She said nothing, but the worry in her eyes spoke for her. "Be careful, Mr. Carter," she whispered. "You just got your life back." That evening, while the city lights blinked beyond the glass, Grant received his first official visitor since waking up Ryan himself. Dressed in an immaculate suit, Ryan walked in carrying a bouquet of flowers and a rehearsed smile. "Grant," he said warmly, "it is good to see you awake. We were all so worried." Grant forced a weak smile. "Were you?" Ryan chuckled, brushing it off. "Of course. The company nearly fell apart while you were gone. But do not worry, I managed everything." Grant watched him carefully. His tone was too smooth, too confident. When Ryan leaned closer, lowering his voice, Grant noticed the faint scar on his wrist, one he remembered from that night, when Ryan had been the last person to see him before the crash. "I heard the doctors say you might not remember much," Ryan said softly. "That might be a blessing." Grant's pulse quickened, but he kept his expression calm. "Maybe," he said evenly. "But memories have a way of coming back, and the ready one of the better." Seeing Tang. After Ryan left, Anna found Grant staring at the doorway, his hands clenched tightly in his lap. "Is everything all right?" she asked. He looked at her, eyes sharp with new resolve. "No," he said quietly, "but soon it will be." As she adjusted the monitor beside him, she noticed his reflection in the glass, tired, wounded, but alive with purpose. Grant Carter had survived the darkness once. Now, he was ready to confront it. A few days later, Grant Carter was moved from the intensive care unit to a private recovery suite overlooking the city skyline. The morning light spilled across the room as he sat by the window, staring down at the streets far below. For the first time, he felt like a man who had come back from the edge, and yet the edge still called to him. He could not shake the memory of that voice from the night of the crash. "Next time, stay out of the deal." Those words haunted every moment of silence. Someone close to him had wanted him gone. He needed to know who. Anna Rivera entered quietly, holding a tray of breakfast. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she said, setting it down beside him. "You look better today." "I feel better," he replied. "Stronger." Then after a pause, "Do you know if my assistant has visited lately?" "A man named Ryan Hale." She nodded. "Yes, he came twice. I did not let him stay long. He seemed impatient." Grant's eyes darkened. Ryan Hale was more than an assistant, he had been his business partner, and the only one who knew about the new investment deal that had threatened several powerful people. "If he comes again," Grant said slowly, "let me know immediately." Anna studied his face, sensing something deeper behind his calm tone. "You think he had something to do with your accident?" "It is a bled my life free. I think too many people had something to gain from my silence," he answered, "and I played dead long enough to see who would show their true face." She said nothing, but the worry in her eyes spoke for her. "Be careful, Mr. Carter," she whispered. "You just got your life back." That evening, while the city lights blinked beyond the glass, Grant received his first official visitor since waking up Ryan himself. Dressed in an immaculate suit, Ryan walked in carrying a bouquet of flowers and a rehearsed smile. "Grant," he said warmly, "it is good to see you awake. We were all so worried." Grant forced a weak smile. "Were you?" Ryan chuckled, brushing it off. "Of course. The company nearly fell apart while you were gone. But do not worry, I managed everything." Grant watched him carefully. His tone was too smooth, too confident. When Ryan leaned closer, lowering his voice, Grant noticed the faint scar on his wrist, one he remembered from that night, when Ryan had been the last person to see him before the crash. "I heard the doctors say you might not remember much," Ryan said softly. "That might be a blessing." Grant's pulse quickened, but he kept his expression calm. "Maybe," he said evenly. "But memories have a way of coming back." After Ryan left, Anna found Grant staring at the doorway, his hands clenched tightly in his lap. "Is everything all right?" she asked. He looked at her, eyes sharp with new resolve. "No," he said quietly, "but soon it will be." As she adjusted the monitor beside him, she noticed his reflection in the glass, tired, wounded, but alive with purpose. Grant Carter had survived the darkness once. Now, he was ready to confront it. The next morning, tension hung in the air like a storm that refused to break. Grant Carter woke early, the ache in his body dull but constant. Anna Rivera entered with his medication and found him already dressed, seated upright at the edge of the bed. His eyes were sharper than before, focused, alert, almost restless. "You should not be up yet," she said gently. You still need rest. I have rested long enough, he replied. There is something I need to do. Anna frowned. Whatever it is, it can wait until you are stronger. He shook his head. If I wait any longer, the people who tried to destroy me will win. She looked at him quietly, realizing there was no fear in his voice, only resolve. Then let me help, she said. Grant hesitated. You already have. Before she could respond, the door opened. Ryan Hale stepped in again, holding a folder. I brought the quarterly reports, he said smoothly. Thought you might want to see how things are running. Grant's tone was calm but cold. Leave them on the table. Ryan placed the folder down, glancing between Grant and Anna. You are recovering fast, he said with a forced smile. Good to see. When he left, Grant opened the folder. Inside, instead of financial reports, he found a printed message, an unsigned email, referencing offshore accounts and a transfer made the week of his accident. It was proof that the crash had been planned. His pulse quickened as he turned the pages. Ryan's signature appeared at the bottom of the authorization forms. Anna's hand covered her mouth. He tried to kill you, she whispered. Grant closed the folder slowly. He tried to erase me. She stared at him, her voice trembling. What are you going to do? And Meted Dest was against Shu Persed, in the Gotterman and Evrian. He looked toward the window, the city stretching endlessly below. I am going to make sure the truth comes out. That night, as the hospital quieted, Anna found him sitting alone, a tablet glowing in his hands. He was typing an email addressed to his board of directors attaching the very documents Ryan had left behind. When he hit send, the reflection in the screen showed not a patient, but a man who had come back to life for a reason. The test was over. The fight for truth had begun. By the next morning, the entire hospital seemed to hum with whispers. News traveled fast in a city built on money and power. Grant Carter's sudden awakening had already reached the boardrooms of his company, and by noon, a storm was brewing. He sat in his wheelchair by the window, dressed in a clean shirt for the first time in months. Anna Rivera stood beside him, helping him adjust the collar. You do not have to face them yet, she said softly. You can wait. I have waited long enough, he answered. They tried to silence me once. I will not let them do it again. At 3 o'clock, 2 men in suits arrived. They introduced themselves as representatives from the Carter Foundation board. Their polite smiles hid the unease in their eyes. Grant motioned for Anna to stay. Whatever happens, he told her quietly. I want you here. The meeting was brief, but every word felt like a blade. Grant placed the folder on the table between them, revealing the evidence of Ryan Hale's betrayal bank transfers, fake contracts, and correspondence implicating others. This, Grant said evenly, is what you tried to bury. One of the men shifted in his seat. You have no proof that Ryan acted under the company's direction. Grant's voice was calm but sharp. The company did not try to kill me. People did, and those people will answer for it. Anna watched in silence, her heart pounding. The strength in his tone made her realize that he was not just reclaiming his power, he was reclaiming his humanity. After the meeting, Ryan Hale was escorted out of the hospital by security officers. His face was pale, his arrogance gone. As he passed Anna in the hallway, he muttered, You should have stayed out of this. She stood firm. You should have left him alive. That night, the hospital room was quiet again. Grant leaned back, exhaustion finally catching up with him. Anna sat beside him, holding the same small speaker she had used weeks before. She turned it on, letting the soft jazz fill the room. You did it, she said quietly. It is over. He looked at her with tired eyes but a peaceful smile. No, he murmured. It is just beginning. The sad dock finds silence. Outside, the city lights shimmered across the glass, and for the first time, Grant Carter felt the weight of justice lift from his chest. A few weeks later, the world outside Grant Carter's window looked different. The snow had melted, the trees were turning green again, and the hospital that once felt like a cage now felt like the place where he had been reborn. He had recovered enough to walk without help, but Anna Rivera still visited his room every morning, out of habit more than duty. She brought coffee for both of them and smiled when he teased her about how weak hospital coffee always was. You could buy the whole hospital now, she said one morning, half joking. He smiled softly. Money never fixed what mattered. You did. Her cheeks flushed, and for once she had no reply. When his discharge day came, The staff lined the hall to wish him well. Anna walked him to the exit, her steps quiet beside his. They stopped near the door, where the light poured in like the start of a new life. He turned to her and held out a small envelope. "You left something in my room weeks ago," he said. Inside was a folded note, the one she had written to herself on a tired night shift. "Kindness always matters." Her eyes widened. "You kept it?" He nodded. "It reminded me who I wanted to be when I woke up." She smiled, tears glistening. "So what happens now?" Grant looked out at the city beyond the glass doors. "Now I start over with the right people this time." Then, turning back to her, his voice softened. "If you are not too tired of hospitals, maybe you could help me build something new." "Any." Anna laughed quietly. "Only if there is good coffee." He smiled. "Deal." A did not was a great sense of Kung's. As they stepped into the sunlight, the soft sound of jazz drifted from the small speaker. She carried its melody warm, familiar, and alive, just like the two hearts that had found each other in the quiet of a hospital room.